Welcome to the Spiritual Connection Podcast. I am your host, Jill. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about your energy, their energy, manifesting, mindset, creating high vibrational healing for you, body work, the importance of massage and self-care, and much, much more. Let's get rolling. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Om Shanti Healing's podcast, The Spiritual Connection. I am excited to introduce Rhiannon Seymone out of Haddonfield, New Jersey. She is a body worker and healer, and her company is called Philosopher's Bodywork. Hello, Rhiannon. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Jill. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to speak with you. And for all the people listening, hello, everybody.
Thank you for being here. So Rhiannon is an amazing pelvic floor healer, and I'm very excited to share some wisdom from Rhiannon and what she does regarding healing the pelvic girdle, energy wise and tissue wise, and whatever other kind of magical things that you do for the pelvic floor. Let's first talk about like when you got into bodywork, how long you've been doing this and what inspired you, and then we'll go into the magical things that you do for healing.
Beautiful. So, as I've been licensed and everything for around a decade, a little over, a little under, time doesn't matter. And but I have been massaging and helping people feel better in their bodies since literally before I can remember. My abuela tells me stories about like family reunions and holidays when everyone's like, Rhiannon, fix the shoulder, rub my feet, help my back. And I just do the thing. And so when I hit high school and someone told me that, oh, you're really good at this. You could do this for a living. And I was like, what do you mean? So what do you mean I can massage people for a living? That sounds significantly better than everything else that I've ever thought of. And so I started aiming my life in that direction. And for my specialty, as most people who get into service work and healing spaces, it kind of starts with healer, heal thyself, correct? I had just trying to think about how I want to share this that in a way that's helpful and not in a way that's just overly over. But based on some adverse experiences in my life, I had developed vaginismus and vestibulitis, which anyone who's had those is you can just short term that to intense pain in the pelvis that Western medicine doesn't really have a clear understanding of why it happens. We're starting to get a little bit more research now around the psychosomatic, psycho-emotional impacts on what creates those conditions. And I went through all of the traditional or Western medicine treatment plans that they could offer me, and nothing really helped. It wasn't addressing the underlying issues. So I went on a deep dive for myself. I am completely pain-free now and just kind of continued down the rabbit hole so that way I could help other men and women with sexual abuse, sexual trauma, and pelvic and sexual pain, because when your core feels fractured and broken, when you have constant chronic low back pain, when you feel like you can't be intimate with yourself or with other people, it makes us feel broken, and we're not broken. We are whole, and we deserve to feel whole and healthy and alive. And that's what I want to bring people. So
It's a beautiful thing. And following the path of your experiences and the sadness that comes with that and the trauma, it's a beautiful thing because you have that empathy, right, for others. And it's you're led to do this from your heart. Yes. Which makes you just better at it, right? More tuned into all of that. Yeah.
I am, yeah.
Share how you do your pelvic floor healing at your Philosopher's Bodywork location.
Absolutely. So I think it's important to start with how I approach trauma because chronic pain is emotional pain. We as body workers know that.
Yes, there's always
And
that piece.
yes, an emotional pain will manifest as physical pain. And so one of the really lovely things that's happening in the world is that we're starting to, as a culture at large, accept that yes, what happens in your psyche does happen in your body as well. With that, what's happened with especially the word trauma in particular is this word creep that happens to all words that get used over and over again. And so what I really help my clients to do first is bring their understanding back to the fact that trauma is a response. It's not an event. There is no such thing as an inherently traumatic event. And when we can start to understand that, we can start to decouple our emotional attachment to what happened to us and start focusing on how do we actually feel in our bodies. What are the places of discomfort or disease or disconnection that are screaming for our support and for our attention, and that screaming is manifesting as pain. And so we start with, obviously it always depends on where a client is at in terms of their how much healing work they have done for themselves before they come to see me, where they are in terms of their understanding of energetic and physical connections, where they are in terms of their understanding of emotional and body connections and all of that. But in general, we start with looking at what are you holding on to and doing a lot of shadow work around how those attachments have leached power or created a sense of false power, which most people, especially women, experience as a sense of disempowerment. Um, Disempowerment, especially around how we interact with other people in the world and our sense of safety in the world and what it means to be a woman in the world. And I work with men too, but I tend to work with more women. And so being able to bring back that space of being afraid is not a necessary component of walking around. And so, especially for people who've experienced abuse and assault and things, coming back into this sense of you actually are safe in your body. So, working with the shadows of what makes us feel unsafe, working with a lot of embodiment principles to reconnect and thaw out any numbness that's happened because we can't activate and engage with our own innate healing if we can't feel what needs to be done, right? We can't,
Exactly. And
yes,
sometimes that numbing out component, right,
yes,
is the way that people go because that
yes,
they just need to survive. You
absolutely,
still need to keep going and function, and
absolutely,
that numbing is their coping mechanism. And it could be really
absolutely,
scary to tap into that because in a way it's a sabotage, right?
yes,
I mean, because they're not the numbing out is preventing the healing from happening because they're still
yes,
having symptoms of that. But the numbing can be more emotional, right? Rather than
absolutely,
physical
and yes, or both and
or
because
both,
all of
right?
our we know from research that when we are physically numb, we are emotionally numb, and when we are emotionally numb, we are physically numb because mind and body are
Mhm.
not different. And and you're absolutely right that those defense mechanisms around dissociation and around numbing out they are 100% normal. They are 100% the right thing for our body to do in that time, if that's what our body has chosen to do. Because again, it's smart. We love our body. It does wonderful things for us, even when it doesn't feel like it. That whole space around then allowing ourselves to evolve into a more adaptive compensation, and instead of the knee jerk, we need to respond to this threat right here right now, or response of numbing out and dissociating. And so that's again one of the reasons I start with that whole sense of, excuse me, the shadows around the safety, because you're absolutely right. We're not going to be able to reconnect if we still think it's unsafe to be in our bodies and to be with ourselves.
Right.
So safety, then embodiment, then allowing more energy movement. And that is very often done with me through hands-on body work. And so uh, which is I do womb / pelvic and trauma massage. So right now that looks like a combination of what was called the Arvigo techniques of my abdominal massage. I can't pronounce what they have updated the name to now. Oh, but the arvigotherapy.com for anyone who's interested in checking it out for practitioners close to you. It's a beautiful resource where you are receiving an abdominal massage that happens between your pubic bone and your xiphoid process, or that little bone where your ribs meet up at the top, and then down your spine over your sacrum and your hips. And so it's a really beautiful external way to help balance the pelvic floor and to bring blood flow through the pelvis, to bring energy flow through the pelvis, to bring lymph flow through the pelvis, to basically to just get flow and movement back through a place that where we've held on to pain and fear and distress for however long we've been holding it on to help shimmy it out.
Right.
And then
Mm-hmm.
combining that also with spontaneous muscle release technique, which is I use at the moment primarily to work directly with bone, since when we talk about like bone deep knowing and when things get stuck in our bones, I work a lot with the very meta literal metaphors that happen with our bodies, because I find them to be super true. Uh, it, those old patterns can really sink into our bones. And by working with the fascia that makes up our bones, we can get an even deeper level of release, as well as a more sustained alignment. So combining those two along with continued shadow work and energy work as uh, energy and images and memories come up, so that way we're helping. So the client and I are working together to really align mind and body, consciousness and unconsciousness, so that way they can feel completely integrated and move forward from this space where they feel solid and whole and alive. Because that's what it's about. We want to get back to life and into new life, away beyond the limitations that we felt were imposed upon us by whatever might have happened to us in the past, whether that's an emotional injury, a physical trauma, or a sexual assault of any kind.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so much emotional attachments to like to the center of the body. That
Yes.
pelvis is like it's the middle of our body, right?
Yes.
That pelvis supports our legs and are moving through the earth, right? And moving
Yes.
on the earth and moving past,
Yes.
literal movement, obviously,
Yes.
but then there's that emotional movement too, you
Yes,
know, and the
absolutely.
moving
It's our place of
forward
existence.
past things, right? Past traumas, past events that caused us pain and
Yes,
fear. And when the pelvis is fluid and moving, and the abdomen is fluid and warm and flexible, right? There's so much to be
yes,
said for treating that part of the body, right? Getting under the
yes,
ribs and moving that lower spine and creating space between the ribs and the pelvic spine, and all of that kind of being able to move with fluidity and grace and openness, and that energy starts to flow. The legs start to
yes,
work better, you know, and the pelvis starts to undulate better and do all the things that it's supposed to do to carry us through to the next day, right?
yes.
And there's a huge amount of benefit in getting this kind of work done, you know, and
Hmm.
not a lot of therapists will touch the abdomen, you know, or go
Yeah.
into the front of the pelvis. You know, they willy-nilly around the glutes, you know,
Yes.
and when you find somebody that can really focus and isolate treatment in that way,
Yes.
there's so much change and so much shift that can occur. They can have
Absolutely.
these
And
energy starts to move, and you can have these aha moments. You can have these
yes,
epiphanies show up and go, oh my God, you know, I
yes,
recalled that thing at that time. Or
yes,
I had a feeling that came up, or saw a color, you know,
yes,
or had an emotion show up when you're kind of in their abdomen, around their navel, and
yes.
things like that can really help move the energy out that is trapped.
Hmm.
Because we can clench, we're clenchers,
Oh yeah.
right? Like
Oh yeah.
the when you're
First thing to
traumatized.
go in stress is the pelvic floor. The pelvic floor tightens up, and
Yes,
that's the first
it's
thing that happens.
so
And then your breath gets all
true.
hitched, and then everything up the chain and is
Exactly.
now stuck in that pattern. So
Yeah. I mean,
yes,
think about for the listener, think about the components of the pelvis, right? There's those two big bones on
yes,
the side, your pelvic
yep,
bones, and then you got the sacrum in the middle that's attached to your spine.
yep,
So when you're hit with something emotional, energetically, things come in first when you have an
hmm,
experience, right? And then your body reacts to it by
yep,
your nervous system being triggered, and some sort of physical response happens. And when
yes,
you have trauma, or an assault or something, that your womb space, right? The place where you
oh yeah,
came from your mother,
hmm,
right? Your pelvis
yes,
is the most vulnerable place for a woman,
yep,
right?
yep,
And you're going to clench down on that. And it could be very subconscious. Like you might not even know on a day to day that you're doing it. And over years and years
absolutely.
and years of time, it just evolves into this chronic situation.
Yeah.
And
And we're talking about these extreme states of triggers of stress. But most people, I think I've met in my 10-year career, I've met exactly two people who came to me and had a perfectly functioning pelvic floor. Everyone else is like, because it's not just giant stresses that we respond to, right? It's all stresses.
right.
It's all of those anxieties. It's all the work stress. It's all the kid stress. It's all the family stress. It's I think like a really big thing that we discount, or I found a really big thing that we discount, is when we place stress on our own nervous system through dishonesties around when those stresses are stressing us out.
Right.
Creating
Denial.
this, yes,
the, oh, I'm
exactly.
just fine. I'm just going to stuff it down there a little more, one more layer. I'm just going to stuff it.
Exactly. Which
I'm
is
just going to keep
proverbial
going.
rug.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it relates to the bottom three chakras, right?
Oh yeah.
Like all of this stuff that we're discussing, right? The
Oh yeah.
self confidence, the acceptance of the solar, the sacral
Hmm.
is where, our sexual center is. That's obviously traumatized in whatever
Hmm.
situation. And it doesn't have to be an invasive thing, it could be verbal abuse from our
Yeah.
parents. right?
Hmm.
Or from a spouse that has triggered that sacral to lock down because they
Yeah.
were mean. They said things that were hurtful, right?
Yes.
But maybe they betrayed us or they rejected us over and over again, whatever that is. And then, of course, the root is that survival center, the kids,
Yep.
the mortgage, the money, the bills, the future, right?
Yep.
Everybody's uncertain of the future.
Oh
We
yeah.
have been since day one, really, of our lives, of all lives. The future's
Hmm.
uncertain. We can't predict it.
Yeah.
So there's that uncertainty of what's in front of us, right? That affects the root, the sacral, the solar. And then we lock down from the ribs down. It's all like clenchy and tight, and we get
Oh
back
yeah.
pain and everything hurts. Maybe we get
Back
pain down our
pain.
legs or numbing in our feet, whatever the scenario might be.
Yeah.
Those lower three are not charged up the way they should be. They're probably more likely to be fried out,
Hmm.
and shut down.
Absolutely.
If
Yeah.
someone's in a
And
state of anxiety all the time, or
yes.
fear, or sadness, or grief,
Yep.
or
Yep.
blame,
Yep.
right?
Or embarrassment, we a lot, and shame, because we as a society definitely carry shame and embarrassment like it's a badge of honor. And it's like, we
Right.
don't need, we
And
don't
for
need, but
women,
we do.
we're supposed to be independent and doing our own thing, but we're all supposed to be dependent on the man, right? We're supposed to show up and be powerful and assertive, yet we're supposed to be introverted and shy, and it's like this
Yeah.
this dance that women have had to go through with patriarchy and societal stigmas and whatever throughout our entire existence, right? Has
It's so
affected
funny.
our pelvis, right? And
Yes,
how we're supposed to show up in the world in front of other
absolutely.
women and in
Yep.
front of men,
Yeah.
in front of, like, how successful are we supposed to be? Can we make more money than men? Hell yeah,
Mm.
we can. But we're supposed to feel guilty about that, right?
Yeah. And it's so funny that
Like,
you bring that up,
let's go
because
do
I was,
that, but pull back a little bit so our partners don't feel insecure. Like, screw
yeah,
that.
you know,
Unfortunately, my guy's like, do it, retire me.
woo! It's
So
so
that's
funny that
awesome, but
yes,
there's this dance, right? And then on top of
absolutely.
it, we have to deal
Because
with
it's
the
so funny that
vulnerability, right, of
yes,
having a vagina.
yes,
That comes
all of
with
the
a
above.
whole
And
nother bucket of crap we gotta deal with.
yes, but it's so funny that you brought that up, because I was just thinking about that the other day, the double-edged sword of how women are taught to care,
Yeah.
because we're taught to care for everyone else, but then we're taught to wait for others to care for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's it's no wonder that space where we then have all of that wrap up in confusion around, well, what are we allowed, quote unquote, to do, and what are we supposed to, quote unquote, do? Because we, as humans, on a very fundamental level, know that, yes, sure, we are all connected, we are all interwoven. As we care for others, we care for ourselves, and things of that nature. But doing that in a balanced way requires that we first and foremost take responsibility for our own care. And if talking specifically about the pelvis, and to make it even more explicit, eh, to go from that point into a more general, oh, but the, like, talking about sexual pleasure, and we're not really told to, we're not encouraged, we're shamed in a lot of instances if we want to explore our own sexual pleasure and take care of our own pelvises, because sex and masturbation are some of the best things that you could do for your pelvis. That's part of what it does. It's a great stretch, it's a great strength and exercise. And so, but so it's a health issue. But yet when we're told to rely on, or we're told that we're not supposed to explore or be in contact with these very vulnerable, very personal, very self-centered, quite literally self-centered spaces in our body, then of course we're going to feel destabilized around how to express in the world, and what space are we allowed to take up in the world, and how do we draw a boundary and say no, because we're waiting for someone else to care enough to care for us in ways that really only we can care, and which would then allow us to get more in touch with our innate sense of boundaries, which is another big thing that people often miss, is that a boundary is not a thing you draw in your mind. A boundary is a thing you experience in your body. So it just, so many things, so many different so many different directions that can come from that.
Yeah. We're still growing out of all of that, right? The
Oh yeah.
patriarchy of like the 19th and 18th century, where women were just vessels for baby making, and our needs and our wants and our opinions, you know,
Yeah.
were
Oh, and
unvalidated.
it's exactly,
That's
and
what we
it's,
were there for, to make babies. And
yeah,
we couldn't say no,
yeah.
and we're still growing out of that.
We
Like it was a matter
we
of
very much are.
survival in those days. Like
Oh yeah.
if we could make babies, we were useless.
Hmm.
Like the men didn't care. Like
Yeah.
you get married to someone you didn't love to make babies, and that was it. And if you couldn't make a baby, then off with your head.
In some
I mean, that's
instances,
really how it
unfortunately.
was back then, and
Hmm.
we're evolving slowly, right? We're
Yes.
evolving and we're growing out of that. But
Yeah.
there's still that in the background of every woman's life, like
Well, and what's interesting
where
is
do
that
we
it
go with
exists
that?
in a large part in the bodywork industry as well, unfortunately. Like, as someone who specializes in pelvic floor, it is insane as a massage therapist, as a licensed as a massage therapist, to try and find pelvic floor focused classes. And
Yeah.
then it's even harder to find pelvic floor focused classes and pelvis focused classes that are not immediately hijacked by prenatal specialists and doulas. Guys, again, women are more than just incubators. The uterus and the ovaries are there to do more than house babies and make babies. So it's one of those things where even in the bodywork profession, I think that's one of the reasons I am so passionate about what I do and about expanding what I know and about taking my work deeper and further, because even when women are given pelvic care, like even thinking about pelvic floor PT, most women never hear about the possibility of pelvic floor PT. And if they do, it's only after they've given birth. And so all of the care around our pelvis is around, well, as long as you're doing it for somebody else. And that is not an integral space to approach our own bodies from. And so changing that. We are all changing that now. Yes.
Fabulous, fabulous. So let's talk about the the techniques you use. Do
Yeah.
you do you do all external, or is there internal work that you do? Walk me through what an
Yes.
appointment would look like for an existing client.
So at the moment, my all of the hands-on work that I do is external. I work very, very closely with um, as I said, the abdominal wall, and as well as visceral work. So working with your the connections between your ribs and your hips, the connection, the bony and movement connections, the muscular connections through the abdominal wall, especially through the transverse abdominis and the linea alba, where your abdominal wall meets in the center. For visceral work, where we're working with your organs and pelvic organ work. So for women, this is a lot about centering the uterus and allowing for appropriate blood flow to happen throughout your cycle, appropriate hormonal flow to happen throughout your cycle, This is also very helpful for men because no matter which, no matter what genitalia you have, your pelvis is a very, very ligamentous place, which means there is not a lot of blood flow that happens in a culture that sits and sits and sits and sits. And we're looking on really helping to circulate nutrients and oxygen and life-giving energies through the pelvis. And I will work through the inside of the thighs, much higher than many other massage therapists will. In the state of New Jersey, as a licensed massage therapist, I am not licensed to do internal work. However, that is part of the reason that I am, as I was saying to you earlier, Jill, moving to Mexico for 2 years. I'm entering into an apprenticeship to learn what's called yoni reclamation therapy, which is an internal technique as well to work with women. And so that's not now, but it is incredibly powerful and very, very beautiful, centering, grounding work. And talking about continuing the external work on the back of the body, working very intricately with the sacrum and all the foramen, where all of the pelvic nerves come out into the pelvis, working very close with the coccyx and the access to the posterior pelvic floor on either side of the coccyx or the tailbone. So for some people, they might think of that and it can seem a little low, like very close to the anus, but your coccyx and your anus are actually tactily super distant from each other, and they have nothing really to do with each other. And so it's much more comfortable than what someone just listening to this might be imagining. Most people, as soon as we start working with the coccyx, they just fall straight to sleep. So all of the work that I do is external currently, and everything that I do is done with full conscious and energetic consent, because it is your body. And one of the things that I really emphasize with the clients that I work with is that it's your body. I'm not doing anything to you. I can offer you guidance, I can help shake things up, but ultimately this is your healing. You're the one doing the healing. And if you're not ready to do that healing, or if it just doesn't feel right now to make this shift or work in this space, I need to know that, because force does not create safety. Force does not create healing. I mean, force just creates more force, which you've already been doing. That's where the stress is coming from. More stress, more tension, more force on the body. And you can do that at home for free. So don't come and pay me to do that.
Exactly, exactly. So you mentioned blood flow.
Yes.
So is pelvic floor work something that can help men with ED?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
So I've worked with many men who have had erectile dysfunction issues. I work with many men who've had erectile pain or uh, pain with the medical term for pain with ejaculation is escaping me at the moment, but pain with ejaculation, we don't need to use the medical term. And so working with men for me is very rewarding, because especially when we talk about the pelvic space, and I love that we have so much focus on women. Women deserve attention, women deserve time, women deserve care. And when we're talking about things like the larger societal structure, when we're talking about moving into a new way of relating and existing in the world that doesn't rely on oppression and violence, and one that values wholeness and life over false power and domination, then we can't expect to work with just half of the population and think that everything's going to change. Men need pelvic floor work too. Men are under extreme amounts of stress. When I talk about having seen two people in life, like that have had functioning pelvic floors, I'm including men in all of the people that I've worked with. Everyone's pelvic floor is tight. Everyone's breath is off because of it. And I say everyone as a general. For those of you who have done your work, fantastic. I love you for it. Not discounting that. And men feel unsafe in the world that we have created together as well. It is an inherent part of the patriarchal system, is to have everyone feel off balance. And
True.
it's
Yep.
to no one's benefit.
Men too.
So, yeah, exactly.
Like,
Men,
never good enough. Do more. Push
yep,
harder.
yep.
Be the
Ignore.
hero. Be immortal.
Yes. What
You know.
emotions? I have emotions. So
You want to talk about your feelings? I don't have
yeah,
any feelings. I have one feeling. I'm
I feel
hungry.
hungry.
That's my one feeling. I'm hungry. Feed me.
I'm hungry or I'm horny. Like, and like think about how dehumanizing that is for a man. The only things you're allowed to feel are hungry or horny. Like, really? Like, we're what? Yeah, we
Gosh,
so
it's so true.
women are not allowed to be anything other than baby makers and virginal whores, and men have to be, cavemen, give me sex. I don't it's insane. It's insane.
It's insane because if they're sobbing, blubbering, emotional disasters, then that's emasculating, right? Like, and women don't want to see that. Like,
I know.
every once in a
We're
while,
all
sure, but like on the reg, no thanks.
yeah,
Men don't want to see that from women either, right?
no.
So
And it's
it's
like,
crazy how the world is running, and like how,
yes.
and it's been since the beginning of time.
Oh yeah.
This is how we've been conditioned,
Yeah.
and we have to just grow. We have to be aware of it, right?
Oh yeah.
And manage it within our little bubble that we live in, to the
Yes.
best ability that we can without all the influence on the outside bombarding us on a day to day. So
And
let's talk about like
yes.
the women. I'm sorry, go ahead. Were you going to say something else about the dudes?
I was just gonna say it's it's so important for us to be able to move in our world, as you were saying, without that shame, without shaming it, while also coming into the understanding that because we're in it, we do have a part in creating it as it is now, and creating it how we would like it to be, and doing that without shame. Because again, that shame goes immediately to the pelvis, and then we just kickstart those same issues around safety and belonging and existence that we've been talking about up until this point, that help create the messed up state that we're in. And I say that lovingly because it is messed up, but it's also what we've chosen. And so until we choose differently, this is what we got. So
And we as
yes.
individuals can make shifts in the right
Yes.
direction, right?
Yes.
But in
Yes.
general,
100
the
monkeys.
masses, there's a certain way of being, right? A
Yes.
certain way the woman needs to look and be and act. And there's a certain way the man needs to look and be and act.
Oh yeah.
Like men have the pressure too to have physique, right? And be able to support a family and
Yep.
take care of the kids and provide. There's a lot
Yes.
of there's a lot of pressure on that as well. I mean, we
Yes.
both sexes have pressure in different ways to be
Yes.
a certain way, as far
Yes.
as societal brainwashing has implemented over decades and
Yes.
decades and decades and decades of time.
Yes. And this work can help whatever can help everyone, no matter what body you're in, to help to start shedding those expectations, to start shedding those internalizations, and really coming back into connection with what is actually expressing through you. Because maybe you as a woman are more assertive. Maybe you as a man are more emotional. Maybe you as a woman are more fluid. Maybe you as a man are more strict. Whatever it is, the point is not to it is not to get stuck in an idea of what you should be. The point is to reconnect with your actual center so you can express and be and live who you actually are, which is going to be the most freeing space from which we can cultivate our most healthy life, physically, emotionally, and mentally. Yeah, no matter, again, no matter who you are. And so, yes. And so you wanted to talk more about the women. What was happening there?
Yes. Squirrel.
I know. Follow the bouncing ball.
But I wanted to talk to you about interstitial cystitis
Yes.
and painful intercourse in that regard. If you've treated anybody that has that,
Yes.
There's connections to trauma with this certain individual I'm thinking of, and in abuse in childhood from mother.
Yes. Yes.
You know, so years and years and years and years of holding on to this trauma and developing the IC condition.
Yes.
And interstitial cystitis, for those that, in layman's terms, I don't know a whole lot about it, but it is a disease by which you have chronic inflammation in the vagina, and it feels like broken glass in there. And a lot of, in like, there's a urgency to have to urinate, like
Yes.
pretty much constantly.
Yes.
And it can be regulated by diet
Mm-hmm.
and different kinds of stretching, but it is a chronic thing. And from what I understand, there's no cure. So
Yes.
what are your thoughts on that? Because this particular client listens to my podcast, and I would love for you to put your feedback into this, for her to listen to that and maybe get something beneficial from it.
Absolutely.
Do you treat this condition with clients?
So I've not worked with many people with interstitial cystitis. It's one of those conditions that, at least in my area, doctors tend to be like, well, go home, do nothing, because there's nothing you can do. And unfortunately, there are a good number of people who listen to their doctors because they're supposed to know what they're talking about, right? But I have worked with a few people, and just my brain wants to do a quick list of conditions that this kind of work can help with. So,
because I know it's kind of a rare thing.
Yes,
but
it's
those
not,
that
it's
have
not,
it
yes.
are at a loss at how to fix
Oh
it.
yeah.
So
Yes.
any advice that you have would be great.
Oh,
Or any
absolutely.
sort of knowledge you have that might help the listener in any way, shape, or form, because I can't even imagine a life in that situation, in that condition,
No, it's
feeling that way in your womanly parts all the time. It's got to be awful.
oh yes. So yes. All right. So specifically, no, my brain wants to do it this way. Okay, so a list of conditions that pelvic specific work and pelvic focused, pelvic space work can help are things like amenorrhea, PMS and PMDD, uh, or painful sex, vaginismus, vestibulitis, uh, dysphoria, which is the medical term for painful sex, pelvic floor dysfunctions, pelvic pain, ED, bladder, urinary incontinence, urinary frequency, constipation, digestive issues, low back pain, especially chronic low back pain, in chronic pelvic pain of all types, hip pain, and the list goes on. But it just felt important, since I hadn't mentioned specifically what kind of non-energetic symptoms that could this work benefits, it was important that I do that. Specifically for things like interstitial cystitis and other painful conditions, finding an Arvigo practitioner near you or a Maya Abdominal practitioner near you, and very specifically asking to learn the self massage. So
Pause
the
a
tool that
moment. Pause a moment there. I'm
yes,
sorry to interrupt you, but you said Arvigo. For those that
yes.
do want to do some research on this, is it just the word, the letter R, the letter V, and the word go?
Oh,
Can you?
Arvigo. Oh, so Dr. Rosita Arvigo she is still alive, is an orthopedic practitioner and midwife who globalized traditional Maya abdominal massage with the blessing of her teacher, Donna Di Hiopante. That is the lineage from which I learned Maya abdominal massage.
Is this
And
something that is a certification? So
yes,
people that would like to be with, like to hire a practitioner that does this Arvigo, they can Google that. It's
yes,
certified Arvigo training to get
arvigotherapy.com.
some deep pelvic therapeutic work done.
Yes, so
Perfect. Okay. I just wanted
arvigotherapy.com.
to put that out there. Yep.
Yes, perfect. And learning, so the school of thought that I came from, there is a high emphasis on self-care. And with that self-care, because obviously you come see us for an hour-ish or longer, depending on how your practitioner works. I work in 3-hour long sessions minimum. And learning how to massage your own abdomen, how to create that space in your pelvis yourself, so that way you can support your own health as well as create a deeper relationship and a more fulfilling, loving relationship with yourself and with your body. And so learning how to do that self massage, I do not, you can look it up on YouTube. I say this very, very reluctantly, simply because you Google it and YouTube it. You really want to go to a practitioner to learn this, though, because they're going to show you how to position your hands, help you get the feel correct in a way that you're not going to get from watching a really, really poorly shot YouTube video. Because I've seen exactly one of them that turned out okay, and halfway through it got blurry. So please don't go to YouTube for this. Um, learning how to do your own internal self massage. On my website, I have a guide on how to do that. So being able to work internally with your own pelvic floor will help support the bladder, help support, again, getting that blood flow, getting that movement through, and helping to reduce and release inflammation on multiple levels. So you'd be working from the inside and the outside. That is also a part of what I do when I work with clients as necessary. I teach them how to do their own internal work, since I cannot do it myself. I also currently partner with a pelvic floor PT, because sometimes you just need the extra set of hands. It
Angles.
Yes, weird angles, weird angles.
Right,
But
right.
learning to do it yourself, as because it's a way of connecting that is significantly different than a self-pleasure practice. Learning to do your own loving, gentle internal work can really help to open up and release tension around the urethra, as well as help the bladder to find a neutral position. Because so your bladder sits underneath of your uterus, which is why you have to pee all the time if you're pregnant, because your bladder is literally pushing on your, or on I'm sorry, your uterus is literally pushing on your bladder. And the same thing happens when we start to experience mild prolapse, or if we have an anterior tilt in our uteruses as women. And and even if you've had a hysterectomy, your cervix and your uterus are the central support for all of the ligaments within your pelvis, your pelvic organs and between your pelvic bones. And so when that is removed, especially if you have a complete hysterectomy, including the removal of your cervix, your bladder function and your bowel movements can change because we're missing the internal support that once was there. And so being able to lift up the uterus from the outside, there are some really, really cool uh, ultrasound pictures that show the before and after of how a uterus was sitting in a pelvis before abdominal massage, before Arvigo abdominal massage, and after. And the difference of just that one round was astounding. So,
Wow.
oh, so it's an
That's
it's an
great.
external technique that has these massively profound changes. And then when we can combine that with loving, intentional, conscious internal work for ourselves, whether that's with another practitioner or with yourself, then we're basically just opening up this powerhouse of energy and light and self and healing. And so I have the very few people that I've worked with interstitial cystitis have seen a massive reduction, and in one of them, a complete resolution of their symptoms. And so I can never guarantee what someone's body is going to experience, but I have never seen someone not benefit from this work in some way. And
Seems so important in that it would be life changing
oh
potentially
yes,
for sure. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And asking yourself questions along the lines of what toxins do I hold on to in my life? Where am I unable to let go? Where am I afraid to be fluid? Where am I afraid to relax and release? What can I do to support myself in opening to the world? Those can also be really, really helpful shadow questions, especially around, excuse me, hiccup, uh, around the bladder, or and also around just voiding in general, whether that is bowel movement or urination. And so because all of that is about holding the detrusor. What is the bladder muscle called again? Because my words are failing me.
I do not know what the bladder muscle is called. I don't massage that.
Okay, that makes sense. So the
I don't
I'm
think
like
that was on the
90% it's
test.
yes, I'm 90% it's called the
The
detrusor muscle. And
detrusor.
if not,
Huh.
yes. So you know what? Wait, we have Google. Why am I torturing myself?
So
So
you talked about the self massage and the love and I just want to reiterate the importance of when we're addressing this area of our body, what is the self messaging attached to that
mhm.
that's
Yeah,
preventing our
detrusor.
healing? Like, is it shame or blame or guilt or feeling like we deserve it, right? Or
Hmm.
whatever could be stuck in that space between our
Oh yeah.
pelvic bones from trauma, abuse, whatever happened. Like, what is the messaging in the background
Oh
telling
yeah.
you that you deserve to have this pain? You know,
Hmm.
that there's something there that makes you feel guilty about it. And the letting go of it is very
Yeah.
vulnerable feeling. It's almost like a clenching and a
Yeah.
protective armor like feeling. And I see that with some clients that have had
Yeah.
mostly parental type abuse, either
Yes.
physical or verbal, or some sort
Hmm.
of family member that was supposed to protect them
Yes.
completely, disregarded that and invaded their space. And they were children, and now they
Yes.
feel like they're still holding on to it
Oh
because
yeah.
for some reason they must have been bad
Yep.
and they deserved it in their child brain.
Oh yes.
Rational thinking now as an adult, they know that's not true.
Yes.
But that subconscious messaging that registered that trauma when they were 7, 8, 9 years old
Yes.
sent them a different message that
Yes.
stuck, right? So
Absolutely.
just the
And
the awareness of when you have this kind of pain, whether it's
mhm.
IC or whatever the scenario,
Oh yeah.
what is the messaging
Yes.
that you're in energetically you can get help to kind of tap into that, because some people might be so repressed they don't
Oh
really
yeah.
have any clue, but
No.
they know something happened. They know what happened when they were children, and it traumatized the rest of their lives,
Oh yeah.
and they just have no idea how to manage it now. Just understanding that the energy part of it can really help them kind of identify that
Oh yeah.
vibrational part of the therapy,
Yes.
can really help them open up pieces of that in a non-scary
Yes.
way
Yes.
in order to clear that in self-love again.
Yes.
Because
And
that's the ideal scenario. When you hate on yourself, there's no healing
oh no.
that's going to happen around that.
Yes.
If you're badgering and you're telling yourself that in some way you deserve it, how are you going to
Hmm.
move past that, right? So that emotional piece, the messaging, that subconscious stuff needs to be addressed too.
Oh yes.
In the whole
Which is why
process
the
of
shadow work
unraveling all
is
of
so
this.
important.
And
Hmm.
it's a choice, right? The client needs to make
Yes.
the choice. Are we going to heal through this and move past it and let it go? Or are we going to, is this our story forever? You know?
Absolutely. Like the decision of, do I want to be somebody new? I choose to be somebody new versus I choose to continue to identify in this space of always, always in pain, always traumatized. It's massive because when we make an actual decision, our whole being aligns with that. That's what spontaneous remission is. Someone is going on some level, well, they go, no, I am not cancer. I am not uh, paralyzed. I am not um, someone with AIDS. I am not whatever it is. And their whole body goes, you're right. Let me fix that and realigns on that space. And I recently had a client who made that decision for themselves. And we, this person has been in pain for 40 years, chronic, debilitating pain for 40 years. And he's having days without pain. And even the days they have with pain is like nothing compared to what it was. But we wouldn't be able to make those changes without that decision. And to
Right.
speak to what you were saying about recognizing the energetic, a way to find compassion and to start to curb a lot of that shame and the mistrust of our own bodies is a huge thing that we have been taught to have, and that pain reinforces, especially when it
Right.
is ongoing, or when it comes with flashbacks, or it comes with the, well, why didn't I fight? Or why didn't I run? Or for people who have experienced sexual assault, why did I respond with arousal? All of this stuff that is totally normal and just the body doing what it needs to do to survive. What we need to remember is that, and you said these words and they're beautiful and perfect, is that everything that your body is doing, everything that you're holding on to now is some kind of protection. It's some kind of armor. Everything that your body mind does is to keep you here and safe and alive. And what our natural state of aliveness is is in full thriving and full love and fluidity. And the only reason that we can't get there is because these protective mechanisms come in and then they become maladaptive, like a limp that's gone on too long. The limp itself becomes painful. And
Right.
so remembering that all of this stuff that we're holding on to, whether it's shame, whether it's guilt, whether it's pain, it's all a protection. And when we can meet that need to feel safe, to know we're safe in a healthy, balanced, aligned way, then those compensations are no longer needed. And we don't
Mhm.
need that kind of protection. So they just naturally fall away, which is
Right.
why the shadow work and the energetic piece is so, so important, and why I start there instead of trying to dive in immediately to the physical work, because the physical work is secondary. Our
Right.
energy bodies, our mental bodies, our emotional bodies, they heal significantly faster than what we've been taught to believe. And it makes sense. They're vibrating faster than our physical body. And so when we can make those shifts from the energy space first, then anything that's left in the physical body, it's just like this relief of let go. And it's not always painless, but it does feel amazing instead of like this fight, or like it's not real. Or you know how when we'll go away on retreats and have these amazing shifts, but then we come back into our regular life and everything is just kind of like, well, back to the same old. It allows
Exactly.
us, yeah,
Yeah.
it allows us to
Yeah.
make a foundational shift instead of just getting a taste of what's possible. We can
Yeah.
actually step into that new place.
Yeah. And I think there's another component that's important to mention as well.
Mm-hmm.
When there's trauma and chronic pain, it's in a sense like a band-aid for kind of like facing that situation,
Oh yeah.
right? What is there that could possibly be lingering that
Mm-hmm.
you're getting a benefit from?
Oh yeah.
Right? Like, I'm in chronic pain, I can't do this, or
Yes.
I can't go there, or I can't contribute to this, right?
Yes.
Or I'm getting pity from them, and to really just to be mindful of, you're holding on to this. Yes, something horrible might have happened, but now you're in this pattern of inaccountability, right?
Yes.
And you
Yes.
you can
That
use
being able
this
to take
pain
care
to
of yourself and your
scapegoat
self
away from
responsibility.
facing your crap and dealing with what had happened, or healing and moving forward, because you have this other component to the chronic pain that's giving you some sort of benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So addressing that, and that's not in all cases, but it's just something to put out there just to plant a seed,
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes it evolves into that, right? We get so stuck in the pattern of being in the pain and in receiving from that in some way, right? That
Yes.
we don't want to let go of it and heal, because
Yes.
that makes us not only vulnerable, but it changes our story and who we are. And
It
we have
does.
to create a whole different version of ourselves that's more accountable, that has to
Yes.
produce and do and be more,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yes.
sometimes that is uncomfortable or
And
scary,
yes.
or you want to avoid it from happening,
Yes.
so that growth potential, right,
Yes.
is stagnated and stifled because of this mindset that's kind of in the background of, oh, if I stay in this pain, then I don't have to get a full-time job,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Or if I stay in this pain, then my partner's going to cater to me for the rest of my life, and that's kind of nice, or
Or
whatever it
I
is.
have an excuse not to go to that party,
I
whatever
have
it
an
is.
excuse. It gives us an excuse.
Yes.
Exactly. And
And
I'm not telling people that I'm discounting their circumstance in any way,
no,
but think about it. If you're in a situation like this, you have chronic pain, and it's not just in the pelvis, it could be anywhere.
anywhere. Mm-hmm.
What's the background story that what is in your head that that's there,
Hmm.
that is affecting you in a positive way where you don't want to let go of it. What is
Yeah.
that reason? What
Yeah.
is that reason?
And
There's a reason. Everybody's got a reason,
everyone
and
does.
just to
And
be aware of what that might be. That's all I'm saying.
absolutely. And to offer for the people who might hear that and who are a little further along in their self-work and their healing work, that who have looked at all those benefits, who have made a concerted effort to shift that identity, to move out of the identity of pain and into facing that fear of the unknown that we mentioned earlier, and being willing to find something else. The primary reason I see people not heal, especially when they have been working for years and years and years not to heal, is because they are unable to see the shadow of the shadow. They can see all of that first layer stuff. They've done all of that digging, but what becomes difficult to see is what's actually the trauma. What are they actually responding to that's creating the belief that they are unsafe and out of control?
Yeah.
Giving an example, this is not someone I worked with, but it was such a strong example that just sticks in my mind. I was listening to a podcast. Uh, Someone was uh, a another healing podcast, and someone was interviewing a poet who was sharing their really, really horrible experiences as a child. And this person has been healing and healing and healing and trying to heal for the vast majority of their life. And the thing is listening to her speak, and I see this reflected in my clients all of the time. The thing she kept trying to heal and work on was the abuse she suffered as a kid. But that wasn't what was triggering her at all. What was triggering her was the fact that she was never believed, that she was misunderstood, and that same pattern she feels has moved with her entire life. And even in the podcast, you could hear her getting frustrated and pulling back into herself every time she felt like the person speaking with her misunderstood. And this is such an important thing to recognize, and it's why I emphasize that there is no such thing as an inherently traumatic event, because what starts creating that belief, that response in you to see the world as a place in which you are unsafe and out of control, well, it might not be the obvious thing. It might not be the thing that everyone else tells you. It could be something. My own therapist, when I was going through work, she was like, if I knock this box of tissues off the table and you feel and you respond as unsafe and out of control, that's the trauma. That's what was traumatizing, not anything else. I could come and yell in your face, and if you feel fine, that's not traumatic. And so it's really, really important for us to, again, come into our center and figure out what is it we're actually responding to, not what is it that we think we should be responding to. Because in the same way that how we want to express authentically in the world, we need to be authentic and honest with ourselves about what are the things that push our buttons. Because if we can't actually see and we can't honestly look at what it is that's inside of us, if we cannot see ourselves and if we're not comfortable enough being with ourselves, that our bodies have to throw distractions at us with pain and recurrent adverse life circumstances or a recurrent rumination and flashbacks on a singular event, then we can't move forward. Our bodies are constantly wanting us to thrive and survive. And what we need to do to create that is to be safe for ourselves. We need to be the safe place that we exist. And then from there, we can create the wider safe places. And it's so cool when it happens.
Yeah, that is deep stuff. Yeah, like what's behind the curtain, right?
Yes,
There's
yes,
this surface layer experience, but what's underneath that? That's
yes,
awesome stuff for people to ponder on for
yes,
sure. Yeah, because we're layered, right? We're
yes,
complex, analytical beings, and
yes.
it's not always what we think it is.
No.
Very
The
true. Like the trauma of abuse from parents. Maybe it's not the yelling,
no.
but it's
Mm.
the underneath it, it's the not feeling loved,
Yep.
or
Yep.
not being heard or not being able to speak,
Yep.
you know,
Not feeling valued.
not
And
feeling
yeah,
wanted, not feeling valued. Yeah, underneath it all. And that's the part that in current life, how is that being reflected with the
yes.
people that are around you now?
Yes.
Right? Who are they?
Hmm.
What are they doing to make you feel that way? That's triggering maybe this
And
pain
why
to
aren't you
not
addressing it?
go anywhere. And that pain is right. And why are you not addressing it? Maybe because they don't even know.
Oh yeah,
It's
and
so
that's the
it's
first
so
part.
subconscious. It's like they don't even realize that that's what's going on and that's what's triggering a pain response or a flare up
Yes.
being around whatever that trigger is,
Yes.
perhaps on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
And did you set your life up to retell that story over and over and over and
Hmm.
over again?
Yep.
Because
Which
that's your
is,
story and that's what you think you deserve to have.
hmm
So you
and it's also
manifested
how
that
we give
happening.
ourselves, it's also how we give ourselves the opportunity over and over and over again to see the thing. Because again,
Right. It
everything we do
validates
for
that this
ourselves,
is, yeah, this
yes,
is our
has
story.
benefit.
This is my
Yep.
destiny, whether it sucks, but yeah, wow, that is profound. Love it.
I just hope it helps someone see themselves more clearly. So that's what we're here for, right? Help.
Fabulous.
Offer
Well, on
support.
that note, let's wrap up.
Perfect.
Uh, uh, Go ahead and share your website, and I'll put it in the show notes. Okay.
Awesome.
And then if there's anything you want to share regarding any online courses that might be coming up for you or anything like that, you can throw
Oh,
that out
awesome.
there too, and I'll add it into the show.
Awesome.
All right.
So perfect. So my website is philosophersbodywork.com. And I, sorry, I got all excited. I completely forgot what you just asked me to do. Squirrel.
Do you have any squirrel? Do you have any online courses or any
Yes,
retail that you sell that people could like check out remotely?
yes. Thank you. So,
Sure.
one of the things, because I mentioned earlier a blog post that I had teaching people how to do their own internal self work. If you're someone who
Yes.
does well with reading instructions, I will send you that link so that way that way people can access that in the show description as well, if that's something that would be helpful to them.
Yes, that sounds awesome. Yes.
Awesome. And so there's that. And the online course that I have coming up right now is called Protected. So it is for smart, magical powerhouse women who are looking to trust in their power and their magic more so they can know that they are safe in order to bring their vision into the world. And so again, coming into that place of unwinding any traumas that are still holding you back, especially if you have been healing and healing and healing. And it's like, I should be done with this by now, but why aren't I? Well, I'll help you figure out why.
I've actually said that exact same thing out loud. Like, well, gosh dang it. I'm ready for some ease and grace for a little while. I'm done learning. I'm done learning.
Yes, exactly. You are done learning. Now here's how to apply that. So
It really never ends, folks, though. It really doesn't. But there's ebbs and flows, right?
yes, so there is an end to healing, and that's when you get to start living. It's when we continue to feel broken that we feel like our life is an endless healing journey. And it doesn't have to be that way because you're not broken. You're not. It's just a matter of recognizing that and actually feeling that in all of your cells. And yes, so please reach out if that sounds like something that you would love a little more of in your life. A lot less inner conflict and a lot more certainty and peace and true, beautiful, peaceful power emanating from you. So
Sounds so fabulous. I want all the things.
wonderful.
All right, so
Thank
I'll
you
put
so
your
much, Jill.
website. You are welcome. This was so much fun. I'm
It
going to put
was.
your website in the show notes for folks that want to check you out. And you were going to send me a separate link for the class, but is the class on your website too? Can people, so we'll just do that. People can just check you
Yeah.
out on the website for upcoming classes, and you have a newsletter maybe people can sign up for? Something like
Yes.
that?
So
Okay,
following
perfect.
me on Facebook is also a really great way. I'm pretty active on there right now. I'm going to be offering a couple other free courses coming up too. So one on intuition is the next one on Wednesday, the 22nd of January, if this comes out before then. And so finding how to definitively know what's your intuition and your true voice versus all of the noise voices. And that I just ask that you share it with people. That one's free. So
Fabulous. Cool. What is your Facebook? What is the name there?
Facebook.com/Rhiannon Seymone. So just my name, make it nice and easy.
Okay. Okay, I'll put that in there too.
Cool.
Well, fabulous. Well, you have a wonderful rest of your week. This was so fun. Thank you for sharing all of your knowledge. And the pelvic floor is a huge thing. I'm so excited to put this out for people to hear.
Thank you. I am very grateful for the opportunity, and I will boost to my modest audience so that way more people can see your podcast and hopefully get some more goodies out of everything you're sharing as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Rhiannon, and you have a wonderful rest of your week.
You too, Jill. Okay, bye.
That's a wrap for today, folks. Thanks for spending the time with me. And don't forget to check the notifications below on my social media links, my YouTube channel with self-care and meditations, as well as my omshantihealing.com website, where you can get info on spiritual coaching and my online courses. And as always, if you do enjoy my podcast, don't forget to subscribe or sponsor below. We'll talk to you soon. Have a beautiful rest of your week. Bye-bye.